Hey everybody, welcome to the eternal and undivided capital of Jerusalem. I am sitting here today with J. Dale Deber and his son, J. Clayton Deber?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I'm not just trying to give this clickbait title to make sure you all watch this interview. I really think that Dale's story and Clay's story is an extremely important story for everyone to hear, especially Jews. Doesn't make any difference what denomination you are, how connected you are, but everyone, even non-Jews. And I'm not going to say anything. I just want Dale to start saying it, and then we'll get Clay in to hear what he has to say. But I was floored, and there's so many things we could talk about, Dale. Like this morning we spoke. We'll touch upon what we can touch in the time we have. What is your story, Dale? Let's go. Let's put it out there for people to hear. What is your story? What's typical? What's not typical?
What's typical is that I was born after World War II. My parents, who were American, my grandparents on one side from Russia. My grandmother, in fact, I sent him on Holocaust Memorial Day, I sent my son the story of my boo-boo, who was—
That's your grandmother?
My maternal grandmother, who was taken out of her village, along with her village people, out into the forest in Belarus, and machine gunned, and the bullets, Baruch Hashem, missed her. She fell into the mass grave along with all of her neighbors, and they threw lime on them and walked away, and she got up and left. And
wow, I didn't even hear that.
If you want to start the story, and you know, I've actually heard that same story from other people who've had that same experience. It's amazing. She came to the United States, came in through Dallas instead of Ellis Island. Her husband, my grandfather, was a Rosh Yeshiva, which I didn't know until, I'm in my 60s, until like a couple of years ago.
Really?
I had no idea.
Wow.
What happened is our parents spoke fluent Yiddish, didn't teach us. They wanted us to assimilate. And this is the typical American story of my generation. We lost Yiddish, we lost Yiddishkeit, we lost holidays, and we knew we were Jews. I was always like a militant Jew, but, you know, it came time for the bar mitzvah.
For your bar mitzvah?
For mine. It's different, actually. His was fun.
Right.
Mine was not so much fun. I had no idea what the words meant. I had no idea why I was having a bar mitzvah. They gave us a record, and we had to memorize the songs.
Right.
I had no concept of what we were saying, what it meant, what being a man, what being a Jewish man means.
That was basically your first contact with Judaism, just learning for your bar mitzvah.
Yeah, something like, you know, I mean, I think we had Passover and Hanukkah, and, you know, the American holidays, the American Jewish holidays. And, you know, it was a disgusting experience. It was not fun. I didn't like it. I refused to do it.
Wow.
You know, I ended up doing it, but, you know, I didn't want to do it. And when that was over, I was done. I just never went back. I mean, you know, some cousin gets
nothing
married,
to do with Judaism after that.
You know, you go to a funeral, or you know, go to your cousin's wedding, or, you know, whatever. And that's what happened. Grew up and was wild in the late 60s and early 70s, as were many in my generation.
Yeah.
I have some good stories, but we're not going to talk about them.
Not today.
And,
or never. Okay. Yeah.
Here a couple. And, you know, and just kind of went into business, and got married late in life to a non-Jewish woman who is the love of my life, and I hope hers. I know I am. And we are the perfect match. We are the yin-yang, not exactly the Jewish term, but we are the perfect match for each other. And we've been married 30 years. We are in love. So many things about that are great. Many things scary, because we had our children in, and this is where our story changes, where our Jewish story changes. We had our kids in private school because we wanted for them, like any Jew, a good education. When it came time to think about high school, we looked at the high schools. We're in Northern California, in Sacramento. We looked at the high schools and decided that Jesuit high school was the best choice for Clay, and the girls' version of that was the best, excuse me, for our daughter. And among the requirements, you had to be a family of faith. Now, that's pretty interesting in a mixed marriage where Christmas to us was the same as Thanksgiving. It's an American holiday. Hanukkah to us was an American holiday. Excuse me.
You taking some water?
I'm good. I'm all choked up. Isn't that a song?
Could be. Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm all, no. And so...
what'd you say? You said you were a faith family? You weren't a faith family?
Well, we had to become a faith family in about 10 seconds. And of course, when Jen and I got serious, we had a religious discussion, because I knew we didn't want to raise Christian children.
So when you're going back to when you got serious as a couple, talking about your relationship before kids, before marriage. So you had this conversation.
So we had a conversation, and really we were very similar. We believed in God, but we didn't practice anything, and we both believed in one God with no intermediaries.
Okay.
And so now it comes time to figure out how to be a family of faith and show that to a high school, which was our motivation, not becoming a family of faith. A terrible motivation in retrospect, but look where we are, so worked out. And we talked to all of the Reform synagogues in town, and we want our son to go to a Catholic school. The mom's not Jewish. We have a year to go. We don't want him to learn Hebrew. What was I thinking? And they all said no. And we talked to people all over the place. And there was a point at which I was so frustrated with this, because the clock is ticking. We got to get him applied. We got to be a family. There's all this stuff has to happen in time.
Right.
And I was very frustrated. And what we realized is that we were not going to be able to be Jews. And so I wrote
because none of the Reform synagogues would take you in at that time.
Right, and I was afraid of all the Orthodox, because I'd been told, keeping in mind, with a Zaidi, who was a Rosh Yeshiva, right. I had been told the Orthodox were nuts.
Right, his grandfather, for those who do not understand the Hebrew terminology, his grandfather was the head of a Jewish religious Orthodox institution, and he only learned this a few years ago, and he grew up totally away from faith. Totally assimilated American Jew.
It's amazing.
Taught that Orthodox Jews are nuts.
And taught, really, they're weird.
Right.
And we were taught, for instance, when it comes to eating pork, well, that was the old days when people could get trichinosis. Now we don't get trichinosis, so we can eat pork, which I might add is a classic Reform
argument.
Lie. I wouldn't say argument. I would say lie today. And so I wrote this. We got to this point where we weren't going to get it done, and we had to do something. But I wrote as sort of a last gasp. I wrote a letter to every Jew in my email, every Jewish name in my email, basically saying, Bar mitzvah, they chased me away, and now when I wanted to come back, they chased me away again.
Right.
And I'm done. And
I don't want anything to do with the Jewish people anymore.
Some version of that, but yes, done. And now I got to find something else, and I didn't know what I was going to find, because I'd never even thought about something else. And out went that letter, and I turned and had a phone call, and 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from my appellate lawyer, who has a very American name, and he said, no, we'll do the bar mitzvah, but Greg, you're not a rabbi. You don't need a rabbi. We're going to do the bar mitzvah, all done. Now, he is Orthodox Jew, president of Kehillah in Los Angeles, And he said, we'll get back to you in a week. And sure enough, he got back to us in a week. And what happened was, he said, we're going to send you some books. The kids are going to study. Every Sunday morning, we're going to, you remember all this?
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to have a discussion. Now, it wouldn't hurt for mom and dad to be part of this discussion. And the other part of this deal is you have to come down to Los Angeles for every Jewish holiday for 1 year. And I'm thinking, what, there's 4 holidays? There's like 7,000 holidays. And so I said, oh, sure, no problem. And we all got a frequent flyer. We all got, A cards on Southwest because we were up and down. They were such a wonderful family to do this. And such commitment, which in retrospect, my heart to them, and even at the time, I mean, the extraordinary effort that they went to save a Jewish soul from leaving and to perhaps encourage some half-Jewish souls to become Jewish was extraordinary. And I am so thankful for it, which is one of the reasons I'm here to my cousin, same lesson. And so that is what happened. We did this bar mitzvah we have a ranch, at our ranch outside, looking at the mountains with the hawks, and our guests mostly were Jewish. We're not Jewish. Most of our guests were Christian, but that was our community where we lived. Right. And so they all came, and they came to honor us and to be, part of an important day. And I remember one thing is that we said we're going to do this all in English, and I have a wonderful cousin, Don, who came from Denver, who, when called for his aliyah, did it in Hebrew. And I was grounded. I didn't say anything.
You were upset at him for saying blessing in Hebrew.
Because, it was supposed to be in English. And I have to tell you, I subsequently called him and apologized for thinking something like that. And thanked him for being true to our people. And it was a marvelous, all this?
Yeah, for sure.
And when our daughter had her bat mitzvah, as she did her speech, there was a red-tailed hawk circling over her head. It was an amazing moment. And from there, we sort of went into the Reform movement. And I want to stop for a second because I may not have some good things to say about the Reform movement. I want to separate, and it's really important to separate the Reform movement and leadership from so many wonderful Jews who have been sort of lost
in the Reform
movement, who are really good people and who are sincere about Judaism, but who have been
led astray,
really badly misled by the Reform movement. And I think that's I really want to make the distinction.
100%. Listen, I say, because I talk about this a lot, and I say I don't have an issue with Reform Jews. I have family who are Reform Jews. I love them, love every Jew. My problem is the leadership of the Reform movement and the rabbis who are basically not telling the truth to their congregation.
And who have, as far as I'm concerned, the Reform movement teaches liberal ideology, not Jewish theology, and really they have changed the religion to the point of making it unrecognizable as a Jewish faith, which, so I go to become Reformed because we have a mixed marriage, and I figured, where else can I go? But there's other than wonderful people in the congregation, there was no there. There's no meaning. We went to Torah study, and you'd sit around this table with, 40 other people, none of whom have read the Parsha, none of whom have a few, none of whom really grasp how to have an intellectual discussion about the Parsha, as opposed to, I'm a business person, and from a business person, I think this, or this is all about nation building, or this is their own personal view instead of what it is the Torah was teaching us.
Right.
And so there was a point at which I asked the modern Orthodox rabbi who I knew, in the town we live in. If I picked a few of the really smart people from Torah study and invited them over to come and do a drash, once or twice a month, and he was great. He did it, and coming into Orthodox thought is a very difficult thing. It's not different. Its context is different, and so when you come from no Orthodox thinking into having somebody who is phenomenally qualified and a deep thinker to discuss Orthodox issues, I didn't have context. And so, in a 40-minute drash, I got some of it, but not a lot of it. But as this progressed, I could build patterns, and I would actually talk to him before and after, during weeks sometimes. And one evening, he was over, and he did a drash about mindfulness and having God in your life all the time, every moment. And I kind of went,
wow.
What? And he talked about, morning prayers and prayers over food and prayers when you see a rainbow and prayers when you smell something good and prayers when you see somebody that you haven't seen. And I went, that's what I want to do. That's what's missing. And I told him, I'm coming. And he went, you are not going to be an Orthodox Jew. You're not going to do this. This isn't in you. It is in me. And I never went back to Reform, except for a funeral or two. And began going to the modern Orthodox. I was afraid of Chabad and the hats and again, you grow up and the Orthodox are crazy. And so I did this one modern Orthodox shul in our town, and I'm pretty right-wing, which is probably why I'm on this show. We all know that. And
I do talk to everybody, and I do love everybody, regardless of their religious affiliation or political views. But it helps.
It helps. Okay. And they were pretty much government workers and on the left, and so it was difficult. And for them, it was about rules. There were people who could recite the prayers in Hebrew. Not that I could. I thought they were very pious people. They had no idea what they were saying. They just learned for their bar mitzvah.
But right now you're talking about the modern Orthodox.
The modern Orthodox.
Right.
And, when I'm struggling with this, when to stand up, when to do all the stuff, and it was really hard. And what came from that was all these rules, but with no meaning.
Right. You were just told, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, but you didn't have the meaning behind it, and that loses it if it's just the rules.
It makes no sense. And okay, we're going to sing before we eat, after we eat, all the stuff. This is fine. That was kind of fun, but no reason. And it was not like Reform, because I could see people had, first of all, faith, and first of all, it was meaningful for many people, and the rabbis' drashes were fabulous. But there was just no real
meaning. Looked like rote.
I couldn't connect. And then we're told, okay, so on Shabbos, you don't turn lights on enough, and you don't do this, and you don't transform food, and you can't write. I'm a writer. I'm thinking, finally, I have a day off. My mind is full of, creative things. And you're
told the Sabbath, you can't write.
And I'm told I can't write. And I'm like, well, I don't like this at all. And it's hard. It's a really hard. We just, and my wife was like, "This is silly," and then shuls being shuls. There's politics and elections, and I ended up at a Chabad, and I ended up at a Chabad on a Friday night, and it was. We're gonna get tears.
Touching.
It was moving. It was the first time that I ever understood the joy of Shabbos.
That's beautiful.
We danced.
That's beautiful.
They sang. People were helping me. If I, they could see when I was confused, and somebody would explain, and it was really joyful. And it was a never before Jewish experience. And that's it. I am going to Chabad. And Chabad has a way of mixing Torah and Chassidus, Kabbalah, and so you get serious meaning and a serious dialogue and a serious intellectual, if you're paying attention anyway, not everybody, but those who pay
if you're interested
in this. Right. And so all of a sudden, I'm wearing tzitzit as opposed to tzitzit.
As opposed to what?
Tzitzit, which was a different lesson.
I don't know what that is. Okay, yeah.
Oh, well, I'll tell you not on. And I'm wearing a kippah, and I'm wearing a kippah in my daily life. And I'm, all of a sudden, you know, there's...
Here's the Reformed Jew, intermarried, who at one point didn't want anything to do with Judaism, and now you find yourself, again, intermarried relationship, children, and now coming closer to your Jewish identity. And so
our home is a kosher home.
Your home is a kosher home, too.
With my wife is not converted, but a kosher home to the extent we can possibly, within the law that we can have, it is, and we have a Jewish home. I mean, it's really, we light candles. We have Havdalah. We do morning prayer. We do everything. We do Mordim. I do, you know, the Shema, the bedtime Shema. I mean, we have, it is a different life. And first of all, as an ADD person, I have to, and I was ADD.
You know I'm ADD, yeah?
Yeah.
You follow me enough.
Yeah. But I was ADD before there was ADD.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
And it put structure to life in a way that actually changed it. And, you know, one of the greatest moments of all of this was watching my wife tell someone in her family that this process changed us both for the better.
That's beautiful.
And
how are you able to explain? In terms of your relationship, or as people, both?
Well, our relationship, because you know, when you're a better person, you're treating everybody else better. But you know, if there's the greatest self-help book in the world is, I mean, really,
well,
this is how, right? I mean, this is about our own change and development, and right. That's what Judaism, in the end, I mean, in large measure, we have that huge process about becoming and developing, and
right.
You know, we're people of action, in internal action, interpersonal action, and of course, save the world action, right. And I think that those lessons being a vote, you know, and all of a sudden you start realizing all this fits together, and you start getting a little tiny, and you start getting a little
Tanya.
A little Tanya. Well, I'm a little Tanya. And you start getting a little this, and you read a little Rebbe letter, and you know, and you get meaningful Yiddishkeit, and that meaningful Yiddishkeit, you know, if it's really meaningful, you adopt it. It becomes part of your life, and it changes your actions. So yes, that's how you become a better person, you know? I mean, I was always very straight in business, and I wasn't ever really a bad person. But I wasn't bad. But my relationships with people, my patience with people, completely different. And a whole, you got me kind of extemporaneously. The list is probably 300 miles long.
Wow. So
much change, and so much positive change, and so much more to go, which is exciting about it, you know, and so much more in our practice to develop coming into this.
Right.
You know, in your 60s is a lot different than, you know, growing up with this and watching the, you know, 11-year-old Chabad boys lead a service.
Right.
In any one of 3 languages,
right.
is you know, pretty miraculous in itself, but we're not there. But you know, we move towards this process of becoming more, and so we say, I introduce my wife as Dottie Looney, and I say that I'm her husband, very. I know you appreciate appreciate. And so that's the story. I don't think that it's that uncommon, except at the very end.
Well, yeah, no. Again, everyone who's joined. So I'm sitting here with Jay Dale and with his son Jay Clay, and we're gonna get to Clay now. We're gonna come back to you, okay? Because basically,
the good one.
Jay Dale's story is the typical Jewish story in a sense that grew up assimilate as an assimilated Jew, not wanting any connection to Judaism, intermarried, also unfortunately pretty typical
Sadly,
in the majority of American Jewry today. But the non-typical part is he's come back now, living life as a modern Orthodox Jew, Chabad. But we come to his son, who is even bigger proof of the change in life, because his son now serves in the Israeli army in Kfir. So he's a fighting soldier, an infantryman. I served in Golani. That's one of the infantry units. So Clay here is in Kfir. That means he's a real fighter. He's in one of the elite units, not just one of the regular units, one of the elite units. So Clay, what made you grew up, you had nothing to do with Judaism until your bar mitzvah, basically.
I mean, used to, we had some latkes and, very minor stuff, but I really grew up, I thinking Hanukkah is Jewish Christmas. Basically, I had no context to what it means. The Maccabees, the historical aspects and spiritual aspects to it, and I think it's really common of a lot of Jews, regardless of being, of mixed heritage or however you want to put it. It's very typical of a lot of American Jews of being, very assimilated into American culture. And I think a big reason that my grandparents, your parents, wanted that was for the safety of. A lot of Jews in Europe would have to hide their Jewishness in order, basically, to survive and to have a safe life. And so, coming from these places where you could literally be killed openly Jewish, they taught their children, not knowing what the future of Jewish people in the United States would be, that here you're going to become an American and also a Jew in private, more so. And so, for me, I wouldn't say I was so much like that, because I remember, very specific instances of being treated differently. I grew up in an area where I don't think there was maybe more than 10 or 12 Jewish families. And, I luckily I didn't experience any direct violence or anything like that. But, some of the Christian kids or something say, oh, you're Jewish, the Jews killed Jesus, or the Jews this or that. And
so you grew up with a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, and some stuff. And then also, more so actually as I got older, seeing I've had many people threatening my life and telling me I'm terrorist, I'm this, Jews are the source of all greed, or all kinds of insane things. And what's kind of funny is also being told by having all of these experiences, and then also being told by other Jews that I'm not Jewish, and then having other non-Jewish people telling me that I'm the source of all greed, or the who can imagine all of these crazy. You're
getting hit from both sides. Yeah,
really. And
they're like, who am I?
And actually, surprisingly, I didn't have an identity crisis at all. I kind of went the opposite way of like, okay, I can understand some of the reasons. I personally, probably not the most popular opinion, I personally disagree with the patrilineal, matrilineal distinction of being Jewish or not Jewish. I would definitely say it's a part of my identity. It's a part of who I am. No one can take that from me or deny it from me. As far as the halachic actual laws, it's a much longer discussion than probably we have time for. But to get back to what we were kind of talking about with American Jews, it kind of brings us back to the assimilation aspects of growing up in a home where I didn't really have the historical context, and I didn't really have any spirituality for it. I had I knew on Shabbat, okay, you light candles and you're not supposed to play Xbox. You're not supposed to, kind of things like this. And it was kind of like what you said, where you had all of these rules and all of these, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't eat this, you can't do this, you can't wear this. And coming from absolute zero to saying, you can't wear these clothes, you can't eat this, chickens, they don't make milk, but you still can't eat cheese with them. And all of these things, it's understandable from absolute zero.
From a rational perspective.
Sure, and but without explaining, all of the thousands of years of philosophy and thinking and behind it, And actually, I think really one of the things that started inspiring it, it was partially my bar mitzvah, you know, studying the historical aspects and kind of getting a context to, you know, some of the things that I had very basic, very, very basic understanding, but basically, yeah, like giving me a base layer of that and kind of actually giving me a way of like being Jewish and learning Jewish, like aspects of Jewish culture and spirituality in a positive manner and not in a like, you know, structurally like enforced way of you can't do this, you know. And I think some people kind of like, it can be kind of frightening. I remember being in Orthodox shul for the first time and being actually kind of frightened, like I have no idea what's going on. I remember, you know, having a lot of emotions of like, do I fit in here? What is this? What are these? What's this language? What are these guys with the beards and the hats? And, you know, why is this song making me feel like I want to cry? And why does it sound so familiar? But also I have no idea what they're saying. And, you know, all of these just mixed up emotions and
wow,
many different, you know, things happening at the same time. And yeah, I mean, having a bar mitzvah and like a non-typical bar mitzvah for sure, it definitely started it. But I think actually coming the first time that we came to Israel, it really like, I think even before I came, you know, I grew up in a very like, I mean, my generation's a lot more liberal, a lot more, you know, prone to more left, I guess, ideologies. And so when I thought of Israel, you know, I think the first time you brought up going, I think, you know, I had heard from some of my friends at college, oh, apartheid or this, or they're doing that. And I think I said, and I think I even may have said, I hope I didn't, but I think I might have said like, oh, isn't it like an apartheid or something there, or isn't it? And so I really truly came from like a point of like knowing almost absolutely nothing other than, you know, I knew, you know, deep down we have a connection here, we have this, but having no context, no real knowledge or, you know, understanding of the political or, you know, social things that are going on here. And coming here for the first time and seeing it in 3D or 4D, even if you want to talk about, you know,
experience it,
the time and like, you know, being able to walk through different parts of Jerusalem and being in this point of time, it was here, at this point of time in here, going to Hebron, going to, you know, all of these places and, you know, having, even going to the Temple Mount, I'm not sure how, I don't want to be controversial, and having people, you know, chant Allahu Akbar at me, or having, you know, small children point toy guns at us and saying stuff like this. And it really just truly, like, it was eye-opening, really eye-opening and jaw-dropping, I guess you could say, of the change. And I think that's actually probably the point at which kind of our family began moving towards more orthodoxy or more traditional way of practicing. And yeah, really, it was coming here for the first time through our mutual friend Eve.
Ivera.
Really, truly.
Shout out to Eve. And this is when you were in college already.
I was, I think, 20, turning 21, or right. I think it was the New Year's of going from 2010 to 2011. So I had already had, you know, experience with college and a bit of this. And yeah, really just like coming from hearing, you know, the opinions of my friends at their $100,000 a year liberal elitist school to having, you know, someone having the physical like evidence in front of me of like, how can you tell me it's this way when I'm literally like looking at it eye to eye of like this, and not even in a, you know, we didn't come here in a, you know, a political propaganda.
There's no agenda. Just to learn.
It was just to learn, and we sat down with all kinds of people. You know, Israelis, ultra-Orthodox Israelis. I think one of my first nights in Jerusalem, actually, I went to the store to buy Coca-Cola or something, and some Israeli girl started talking to me, and I kind of sat there and talked with them for the night. And so I really got like all of the different aspects of like regular, everyday, non-religious Israelis to ultra-religious that have been here however many generations, to talking with one of our other close family friends. His friend is a mechanic from like an Arab village, and, you know, just really having like all of these people in front of me and seeing just like, yeah, like I want to say three-dimensional, but really like even more so of like how truly complex and how many layers and dimensions and different people's stories and different emotions that came up from it, and really it started a fire in all of us, in our entire family.
Coming to Israel and experiencing the true Israel, real life, meeting real people, and hearing the real, seeing with your eyes, seeing the history, seeing the reality, all of a sudden open up your eyes.
And I mean, it wasn't like my eyes were closed. I had I knew some stuff, and it was more just like, my eyes were already open, I guess. My heart was already open, but it was just, the information was there, and it was present, and it was in a accessible manner of where I was able to form my own opinions and, absorb the information.
So I have two questions then. So one, what were the reactions of your friends back in California and university if you were telling them about your experience in Israel? How did their preconceptions about Israel affect how they accepted what you were then telling them about your real life experience? And two, what was your path from that point to then wanting to become an Israeli soldier even after college? This spark is only starting with you in college, in a sense, for Israel, and here you are, you're an Israeli soldier, older than everyone else in your unit.
Probably about 4 years older than my Mempe, which is like, the controller.
Platoon commander.
And so, I mean, well, I'll start with the first question, which is, how did my friends react? It was actually very interesting, because I first started university in Seattle, which is a very diverse city. And I kind of had two separate groups of friends, because I actually went to a community college there. And then I had one group of friends that I knew from like the private school, like the more liberal private university. And then I had another group of friends from the community college, which was people from all over the world, people from all different social and economic backgrounds. And is still fascinating to me to this day, all my friends from the community college, which is typically people coming from less money, coming from not very good access to education, all had just an endless amount of questions and a genuine open mind to it. All of the people at these, elitist universities that cost probably more for 1 year of this education, I really truly mean education, in quotes, that cost one more of this year of education than any one of the teachers at the community college makes in a year. Almost every one of them, unfortunately, I still have some friends, from there today. Many of them immediately, starting fights with me, posting Zionist banker conspiracy theories on my Facebook, or, I really lost actually a lot of friends, like a big portion of my friends group, which was kind of at the time, it was like amazing. I was like, wow, I'm
shocking.
This, an inch into being Jewish and to like being openly Jewish. Already I'm losing many of these people that I thought were really close friends of mine. And watching all of these like supposedly educated, knowledgeable people turn in an instant just because of, and it wasn't even they had finished a degree, it was really maybe 1 or 2 years in a university. Watching that instant face switch just because of my opinions on being a Zionist, or just even regardless of government or anything, believing that Jews have a connection to this land, that we're indigenous to the land, where our language, our spirituality, our morality, our blood, our literal ethnicity, we've done a DNA test that can trace our ancestry back to this land thousands of years ago. Just believing that was so much of a problem to them, getting out of their bubble, that they could not be friends with me, or that they ostracized me in a lot of ways. Whereas all of my friends coming from, very diverse backgrounds, one of my best friends from there came from a family from Saudi Arabia, another close friend, from Southeast Asia, from all over the place, really. They all came at me, wow, that's cool. I wish I can go to Israel too. That I've always wanted to go there. It's really interesting. It's really like amazing. Wow. I've heard about stuff there. It looks really cool. I showed them pictures. They're like, whoa, I want to go. Whoa, that food looks amazing. Whoa, I heard Israeli girls are really beautiful. All of this stuff, which I think I might have dramatized that.
I have to tell you, they followed him around. He had really long, it's sort of, it's very light. You can't see with the short hair. Girls were following this around. It was great.
I don't know about that. But, and so really just like seeing like the real propaganda that my generation of Jews goes through on a daily basis, not only through, it's getting worse and worse, not only in universities, but through social media, like the progression of social media and like the bubbles that are the political and ideological bubbles that are being enforced on entire groups of people. And you can go on your Facebook right now. Facebook has a specific political ideology that it considers you based on your likes and your posts and your histories, and it like personalizes who you see based on that. And then that's not even considering like the people that work at Facebook and Twitter and stuff, all of their political ideologies, that they silence people, and there's like
we're there,
and
we're there, we're in that fight.
And just seeing this of the amazing, like how much of a different level of understanding and wisdom and like open-mindedness of people that are supposedly uneducated or whatever stigma you want to have of like a community college, compared to this like elite private university. That was more eye-opening than my first trip here, I think. Just the almost immediate response of like seeing who my real friends are.
And the more educated, I like that you said, the more educated, we're the more ignorant. It's not the more ignorant. They're the ones who are less open.
Prejudice,
right? Yeah. And they're less open. And I said this all the time. I'm especially today with everyone, with unfortunately the left screaming sexist, racist, bigot. It's the ones who play identity politics who are exactly that.
Exactly.
They're the ones, people based on all those things, and we're the ones who are not.
And I want everyone else also to know, my generation, they want to make it seem like everyone's anti-Israel, everyone's, hating us. It's not at all true. I have I would say probably 70 to 80% of my friends are more left-leaning or more like you could say like diverse, people want to say person of color, people want to say however you want to describe it. Almost every single one of the people that I've experienced extreme hostility from have been white, left. The 2000 old college, and I had a girl, I don't even know from that some of the people are Jewish. And I was like, oh, okay, cheers, fuck Hamas. Oh, excuse me, I'm not allowed to do it. And then this girl just starts screaming. Oh, do we lose it? Okay, sorry for swearing, everyone. He's
a soldier.
Yeah. My close friends from so many different backgrounds that are like supposedly, maybe they went in and out of school, they have to work, they have some kind of challenging situation. They have many questions. People saying, I've had a friend that was black. He said, I'm actually kind of scared. Like, I would like to visit you. I'm scared to go there because I'm black. I said, first of all, that's very like, it makes me sad that the propaganda kind of goes that far, and then it also makes
plenty of black Jews here in Israel.
I mean, not only that, it makes me laugh at the same time. Just living, especially anywhere in any main big city, like it made me laugh. Of just like you really think like people genuinely believe like they're going to be targeted based on these like ridiculous things. And I told him, people probably are more likely to come up to you and speak Hebrew than they are to speak to me, or they'll come up and speak to me. People come and speak Russian to me at least 3 times a week because they think I look Russian.
And also, and one thing I tell people, and I think there's a big problem with American Jewry, right? They've bought into this white privilege thing that Jews are white. And one of the lines, and anyone who follows me knows, we're not right. We're not Jews. Are not white. Jews are Jews. We're of all colors.
But you know what I want to say about that?
Yes, please.
This is like a tachlis, self-criticism moment. American Jews have assimilated into whiteness to a large degree, and this is the why. If you look at a person that is not well knowledgeable about our history and our ancestry and our peoplehood, of course they would think that we're white. What is the context of Jews that they have? They have Nancy Pelosi's and whoever knows on TV, or like they have the stigma of the guy with the beers and the and face and the hats, and they don't really see like the diversity, and I think part of it also is there's that whole group of like, diversity, white versus non-white, racial binary kind of thing that more exists in the U.S. than especially here, but more in the U.S. and Europe than anywhere else. And they kind of erase the existence of all of these Jews that have ancestry and culture that has nothing in any point in history to do with Europe.
Right.
And that is even like
racist.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
they're
racist.
Literally like
you're wiping out the people in your own.
They're erasing
your own
the
people.
experiences and peoplehood of Mizrahi and Sephardi and all of these different Jewish groups, and like there are interconnectedness and like trying and working daily to separate Jewish people into these different sects or groups, or saying white Jews, Arab Jews, Russian Jews, Venezuelan Jews, who knows? And instead of saying
we're all Jews,
and not only we're all Jews, we all have a genuine, not only spiritual, not only linguistic, but blood and ethnicity connection, not only to each other but to this land that I tried to describe to a close friend of mine about defining Zionism, and what I told him is like, if I can make it one sentence, I'm not going to tell you that Zionism means this land belongs to the Jews. I want to say Zionism means Jews belong to this land. And that is like the best way I can summate it into one sentence. And what I tried to explain to my friends that are not Jewish, that have no connection to this, of like, they have what they read, and I have had to, like that emotional thing of like someone saying something that's so wrong, and I have like that emotional thing of like wanting to jump on them, but sablanut, patience, and being able to explain and to like talk about truly justice and talk about real everyday experiences of Israelis, Palestinians, whoever you want to talk about, and being able to discuss about that and putting a human face to the idea of this monstrous Israeli warrior or whatever, or soldier, or whoever, whatever the stigma is so much more effective than any number of like these videos that the Israeli government does, or
we need you talking on college campuses.
I would be happy to, and I have other friends that do as well. But it's it's dangerous. I was actually I was literally assaulted and thrown to the ground by police on UC Berkeley campus for protesting against Bassem Tamimi, who is the father of Ahed Tamimi, the blonde terrorist woman girl. I guess she's a woman. She's actually probably closer to 21, 22. I've had some friends that did research on their family.
Yeah.
They have essentially very little connection to this land. They are responsible for dozens and dozens and dozens of terrorist attacks. And, this man went to UC Berkeley College to talk about how he's a peaceful activist and he's this and that. And I also made a mistake of, I went in there, I lost my temper. I had all of these like calm and intelligent things to say. I remember on our first trip, we went and spoke with the Roth family, who lost a daughter to one of the suicide bombings.
Right.
Yes.
And I saw his face, and I just, Anayim Adom, my eyes turned red, and I just busted in there, and I started screaming at him, accusing him of all this stuff, and you're doing this. And actually, someone else who's been more famous lately, Ariel Gold, from Code Pink and JVP, was there. And, I went in there, and I did come in really hot and really, it was unwise of me to do it that way, but also so just raw emotion. I just had to say it. I had to do it. And I went in there and I yelled at him, you're a terrorist. We're not the terrorists. You're murdering this people. You are responsible for these murders. I came at him doing this and telling him exactly this thing. I might have swore a little bit. I might have insulted everyone in the audience.
No, we wouldn't think that.
And what happened, actually, the first thing that happens was one of the members of the audience comes up, pushes me, on camera. I took a video of it. I made sure to take a video of it. Then another girl in the hijab in the audience calls me a dirty Jew in public. Ariel Gold looks at her, looks back at me, and starts telling me that I'm being disruptive. She literally witnesses this woman calling me a dirty Jew, turns around and starts calling the police on me, saying that I'm being violent and have a weapon possibly.
Crazy.
The police run into the room, tackle me to the ground, and start kicking me in the ribs. And Ariel Gold and many of the people of the audience are yelling, grab his phone, and people are coming and trying to steal my phone from me. the police think that I'm some crazy guy with a weapon. I was a little crazy. I absolutely did not have a weapon, and it was just like amazing to see, really, like. And Bassem Tamimi, actually, I think he understood at that point when the police were throwing me to the ground and beating me, that he was like, oh no, he's actually flipping this whole victimhood card of like media victimhood card back onto us. And he started saying, oh, you know, I've been in this position, you know, I don't want him to be, don't arrest him, don't take him, we want to hear from him. As soon as they started dragging me out the door, this is what he said. He said, I have many things to say about him. He is intelligent, he does know what he's doing. As far as propaganda and media,
he knows what he's doing.
And as far as
there's a reason the European Union is giving him all this money to do what he does. So for to provoke. All right. So and again, so that's how'd you become a soldier? Why? You're college. You're now a proud Jew standing up for Israel, proud Zionist. You don't have to come to Israel and be a soldier. Keep on going your life. Get a job. Like you decided at one point to be a soldier in the idea.
I have almost every week someone asking me this question. And I don't exactly have an answer that I can put into words, but I have an answer that I think also something that I learned from my father. Those who do not take sides in the fight against good and evil take the side of evil. And I felt that being a Zionist, I guess I am Israeli now. I have a passport, I speak Hebrew, etc. I feel a collective responsibility, meaning not only for the good parts of our society, for the bad also. When someone from our society commits an act that I consider immoral, I feel that on myself also. I believe it's our responsibility as a nation, as a tribe of people, to also stop that from happening and to take responsibility for when that happens. And also, you know, in the army, anyone that served in the army knows it's not exactly a fun thing. It's very hard. Not very glamorous. Not very not like you don't get a lot. You know, it's not like rewarding, especially monetarily. You know, most of these guys work harder than anyone I know in the United States almost, and make less than $1,000 a month probably. Almost nothing, and it's not because of they have to. It is legal that they have to. I know, especially the people from my unit. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say which unit, but especially the people from my unit, every one of them would be there whether they have to or not, because of the seriousness of the situation. And it has nothing to do with hating Arabs or Palestinians or anyone. It has to do with loving our country, defending our people, and another time collective responsibility that we have as the Jewish people, as our nation, as our people. And I don't believe any person there, especially in the day-to-day grind when there's not a lot to do, or we're just getting ready to do something, everyone's like, oh, it's so useless, it's so boring. You know, maybe some people, they want to go home. Everyone wants to go home from the army. There's not a single person there that wouldn't stand up and fight or do whatever they need to do for our nation, for our people. And this is why time and time and again, no one can defeat us. No one will defeat us. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And this is our home, and we're not going anywhere. We're happy to share with anyone else, you know, that also considers this their homeland. Yeah. One of my favorite Palestinian speakers, his name is escaping me right now. He said, "Your homeland is not where you're born; it's where you find justice." For me, I guess that's another way to put why I made Aliyah, why I volunteered for the IDF, why they tried to stop me from joining, and
because you're older.
I'm old. I'm almost 29, and they tried to stop me from joining. They lost paperwork. They made me go through several extra steps of him trying to convince me not to do it. Just looking back on it, understandable of why. But at the same time, you know, I just knew, like, I also need to do this. It's part of the culture. It's part of everything someone goes through. I look at a lot of other Olim Hadashim, new immigrants that come for a few years. They feel like they don't fit in. They don't learn Hebrew that well. It's hard. It's really, life is a lot easier outside of this country. But life is about being easy. And the more challenges that you go through, the more chara that you go through. Sorry again. The more reward.
Yeah.
I didn't know the word.
You know, yeah, that's the English slang.
The more rewarding it is. And actually, one of our chants during when we were going into our Masa Kumta, my Mefked Sevet, you know,
just to get the final march to get your beret.
You know, we chanted like, "Yeah, kashe, yeah,
it's gonna be hard.
It's gonna be crap. It's gonna be crap."
And you know the sentence of the famous sentence of my friend, who my close friend who was murdered, Ari Folt.
Actually, I wanted to speak to you about. Tell me, but I actually met him also once.
Oh, did you? So his famous line that a magnet's been made with his line: if life is easy, you're living it wrong.
That is an amazing statement, and I have heard that before, and that is a really perfect description of why we're here and why I came and why I joined the army. And actually, Ari was, I believe, the very first person I talked to the second that I landed in Israel as a new Israeli citizen.
Really?
He was on my Aliyah flight. I did an Aliyah flight.
He was on your Aliyah flight?
By myself.
Yeah.
And then, it just happened to be that. It wasn't the one with all of the people. And I saw him. I was like, where do I know this guy from? And I looked at him. I was like, don't I know you? You're the guy that does all those videos. And he's like, oh, I love it when people tell me this. He came and took a selfie. And we gave me advice. He was like, you're going to join the army, right? I was like, yeah, absolutely. He was like, good, man. And, we didn't talk for too long. I can't claim I knew him really well. I honestly wish I could have. When I was in Kenyon Israeli in the big mall in Tel Aviv, when I found out, and I was walking around with a friend and just buying stuff, and I read that there had been a stabbing earlier in the day, and it always kind of hits me. I know a lot of people that live in Judea and Samaria, and a lot of especially Americans don't have the personal connections. Everyone's separated by 6 degrees, but here, no one is separated by more than 2 degrees. I genuinely don't believe there's anyone here separated by more than 2 degrees. And it's always like all of Israelis, whenever they hear about something, they're like, who do we know that happened to, or who do we know that knows that happened to?
Can I just tell the story of what just happened in terms of the 2 degrees?
Yeah,
and you're referring, unfortunately, to terror attacks, which is true. We all know someone involved in any attack. Here in Israel, us Jews, we have a 1 degree separation, sometimes even. Here, Clay. So if you've heard his story, so Clay wants to convert. Right, he's here serving in the Israeli army, but now he wants to, according to Jewish law, convert to go according to that process to join the Jewish people, and he's having a hard time getting into the special IDF conversion program. So his father tells me that. I'm like, oh my God, give me his information, because I just took up the call, and who do I call? My friend, who I grew up with, who used to be my babysitter when I was a child in New York City, who runs the IDF conversion program. So I just WhatsApp him all the information, and he's not going to take care of. Hopefully there'll be a happy ending to the story of Clay being able to go and accepted into the conversion program.
I've only been asking for a year and 3 months for this program. So hopefully now.
We'll make it happen. Talking to the head shop, the guy who runs the program. That's the degree of separation. How we all know everything that happens in this country.
I have to say, I every time I hear him speak, it's shocking, because I think he's little.
You're Clay, your son's name.
And I think he's this, but he's really this. He said something. There was one sentence that he said that brought tears to my eyes. He said, "It's not that the Jewish people."
It's not that the land belongs to the Jews.
The Jews that belong to the land.
To the land.
Yeah.
100%. And I want to touch upon another thing, and this is a message that I try to give over as well, especially to my children and anyone. And you're living that by being that you volunteered and pushed and pressured the army to take you, right? So people think that serving in the IDF is a duty, right? Because yes, according to law, there's a mandatory draft. So you reach 18, you're drafted. But the way I understand it, and the message I give over, especially to my kids, is it's not a duty; it's a privilege.
Privilege, really.
Right? Like I'm a history buff. I told your father, and I look at Jewish history, world history, what's happened to the Jewish people, and after thousands of years of not being able to defend ourselves and being at the whims of every host country, and horrible things happen to us here, they're having to run away from one country to another country, that we're finally able to defend ourselves. That's a privilege. And it's a privilege that I don't understand anyone who doesn't understand that, and then wants to take part and maximize that privilege to be able to stand up for himself and for his family and for his people. So kol hakavod for you for doing that. And there's so much more to talk about. We've spoken about so much. We haven't even touched the service, but I want to end with one final question.
Okay.
To Dale, again, touching upon the American Jewish story. And I want to hear your feedback about what I have to say, and we'll end with that. Basically, as a message to Jewry and to American Jewry specifically, the message I try to give over is that what many Jews are missing, and many Jews, not just Reform Jews, even conservative and Orthodox Jews, Israel is an inspiration for their Jewish identity. Meaning understanding the truth about Israel, not just in terms of their history, but in terms of Israel today, and living the values they profess to believe in. Equal rights, humanity, taking care of people. Again, taking care of even those who hate us, or part of a population that is sometimes an enemy to us. Whether it's how we take care of our enemies in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, or taking care of the Arab population with equal rights that they have. Those who understand the truth, Israel is an inspiration to them being their Jewish identity. What can be done? What's missing so that Israel can be helped in strengthening their Jewish identity? Whereas right now it's being used as a wedge to push so many Jews away from feeling pride in Israel, or wanting to be associated with Israel, and therefore also feeling shame in their Jewish identity.
Before this huge rise in the last 12 months of serious anti-Semitism in the United States, particularly in the left and in the Democratic Party, Pew did a study which found that 63% of American Jews felt that if Israel went away, it would not change their daily life. That speaks volumes. And that's before the anti-Semitism. What you find is that even religious Jews are unwilling to stand up and be counted in America, and very differently than here. It's so different. And they won't write a nasty letter to the Federation when it misbehaves. They won't stand up and say to a rabbi, no. That's not the Jewish philosophy of abortion, even when they know. And so you have this internally bred apathy. Those of us in business know that Harvard did a study some years ago, and the Harvard study showed that in our businesses, generally speaking, 80% of our profits are earned from 20% of our customers, and 20% of and 80% of our customers produce 20% of our profits. We see this in the Jewish community in a different sense. 20% of Jews have a love and a care for the Jewish nation, as opposed to the Jewish state, and probably less for the Jewish state in America, where we have almost half of the Jews in the world are in America,
right.
Almost as many as here in Israel, and we see this huge dichotomy of just I'm Jewish because I like a good corned beef sandwich with a slice of cheese, and so we see a lack of understanding of what Judaism really means. And I think what we can do is learn from a couple of lessons. One, the Reform movement is shrinking. It's lost 10% of its, I don't call them shoals, of its facilities over the last few years, and they are decreasing. Their numbers are decreasing. The number of families per shul, maybe not in every single one, but the average number of families per shul is decreasing. When you look at Chabad, which offers a real view of Judaism without the requirement that we all wear black hats and keep kosher, whatever.
Requirement. Just like come enjoy the Jewish experience and go at your own speed.
They go at your own speed, and they offer education. And I think the rise that we see in Chabad in weird parts of the country, they're finding Jews. The ability of Chabad to, go to the mall and turn on their Judar and find a guy that's never put tefillin on.
Right.
Are you a Jew? I've done this. I've gone with the rabbi. And you put the tefillin on, and it's the guy. It's a meaning. It isn't a meaning, but you know what? There's that little flame that's lit, and that little flame does not have to be a big, meaningful moment to change their life. You light the flame, and their heart and their mind and God will do the rest. And but the flame has to be lit, and they have to ask a question. Well, what's this with no writing on Shabbos? Oh, we don't create. Oh, God stopped creating. We emulate. We don't create. You know what? How cool is that? What a meaningful kind of. Okay, I understand why this is a holy day. Something that simple. I can't tell you how many Jewish friends of my age could not tell you why we don't write, why we don't transform an egg, why we can stoke a fire but not light a fire. There's no concept. Why we don't clip fingernails. There's no concept of the meaning of that. And the fact of the matter is, when you do something with meaning, when you hug somebody you love with meaning, as opposed to your buddy, the neighbor, because you haven't seen him, or oh, welcome back. That meaning, if we bring that meaning to Jewry, that's how we solve this problem. So that's how I answer your question. We have to bring meaning. We have to not be restrictive, and we have to be accepting of people who have been badly misled by the ignorance of their parents, by the good intentions of their parents to protect them, by the search for power in the Reform movement. We can't forget that it was the Reform movement that gave FDR the ability not to bomb tracks and save millions of Jews. Right. The Reform movement did that. They gave him cover. And people don't understand that history. And I think that you can't, walk up and do what I do, which is hit them in the face with it, because I'm a reporter. But to do rather what Chabad does and bring a message that is
love, inclusiveness,
and meaning.
All right, beautiful. Wow, there's still so much to talk about. This has been fascinating. I hope everyone who's watching is enjoying and gets some meaning out of it. It's definitely been meaningful for me. So, Dale and Clay, thank you so much. May you continue.
Yeah, really.
It's my honor. May you continue to enjoy the journey. All right? And wherever you're at, may it continue. May it never end. You too. Looking forward to seeing you in Israel, and obviously looking forward to seeing you in Israel. And can you say what your next stages are, or you don't want?
We're making Aliyah. We're doing
making Aliyah. Making Aliyah. Look what Clay's here, bringing the parents. Unbelievable. Listen, I hope more people are inspired by your story, by your actions, whether because they know you personally, they're listening now, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, an aha moment. But and it's trying to save one Jew at a time to get that meeting and own their Jewish identity, however that is,
so
to
important.
Save themselves.
So important.
And also help the rest of us.
And so important. And so many misconceptions about what Judaism is in the Jewish community.
Right.
And it's sad. But,
right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward. This is going to be one of many, because I'm looking forward to many conversations also in terms of Judaism and Reform Judaism and Judaism in America and even theological things. Love to go into that.
Anytime.
Love to.
Amazing. My expertise is something else.
All right. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. make the world a better place, and that starts with you and owning who your true identity is. So if you don't know enough about it, learn, and keep on learning. There's always more to learn. And final shalom from the eternal and undivided capital of the Jewish people, Israel. Take care. Jerusalem. Take care,
Jerusalem.
everyone. Thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.